The first principle every woman must remember in love. Have you ever noticed how some women seem to disappear inside their own relationships, as though their light has been dimmed little by little until it no longer shines? They begin with confidence, with clarity, with the full bloom of their spirit. Yet as time passes, they lower their standards, they silence their own needs, and they offer more than they can carry. In their quiet desperation, they start to beg for what should never be begged for: love, attention, and respect. There is no greater tragedy than a soul who forgets its own worth. And this is where we must begin our reflection today. Welcome to Buddha Story. Here we explore not just the ancient teachings of the Buddha, but also the ways these truths cut into the heart of our modern struggles. Today I ask you to stay with me until the very end, because what you are about to hear may shock you, may stir something deep inside you, and may challenge everything you thought you understood about love and self-respect. This is not another lesson about pleasing others or learning tricks to be loved. It is about reclaiming what is already yours, the dignity of your own soul. So often, women are told that their value lies in how much they give, in how much they can endure, in how deeply they can sacrifice. Yet this teaching is false. To beg for love is to declare yourself empty. To beg for attention is to confess that you do not believe your presence is already worthy. The Buddha once said, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." It is a simple truth, but one that the world constantly makes us forget. Let me take you into a story, one that echoes across centuries. Long ago, in the time of the Buddha, there was a queen known not for her beauty or her power, but for her wisdom. Her husband, the king, once asked her a question he thought would test her loyalty. "Who do you love the most in this world?" She looked at him with calm eyes and answered, "Myself. For if I cannot love myself, how can I truly love another?" Her words shocked him, but when the king brought her answer before the Buddha, the teacher affirmed her wisdom. This was Queen Samita, a woman who knew that self-love was the root of all other love. Her courage reminds us that begging for love is not only undignified, but also unnecessary. When you know your own value, the love you give becomes complete, not desperate. Another tale brings us even deeper into the heart of this truth. There was once a woman named Anishta who lost everything she held dear. Her husband, her children, and her family were all taken from her in tragic turns of fate. Overcome by grief, she wandered the streets, broken and lost. Many people saw her as insane, a woman shattered beyond repair. But when she came before the Buddha, he did not give her false comfort. He did not promise to restore what was gone. Instead, he spoke to her of impermanence, of how all things in this life are subject to change. By embracing this truth, she found clarity once more. She rose from the ashes of despair and became one of the most respected women in the community of nuns. Anishta's life teaches us that when all external love is stripped away, the deepest source remains within. Dignity does not vanish with loss. It grows when rooted in wisdom. And then there is the story of a mother named Jisara, who carried her dead child in her arms, unable to let go. She went from door to door, begging for medicine that might bring him back. Finally, she came to the Buddha, who told her to find a mustard seed from a home untouched by death. She searched the city, but every door she knocked upon carried the same story. Death had visited them too. When she returned empty-handed, she realized she was not alone in her suffering. From that day forward, she no longer begged for what could not be returned. She learned to accept impermanence, and through that acceptance, she found peace. What do these stories reveal to us today? They reveal the same truth that women continue to forget. Love cannot be begged. To beg is to surrender your dignity. To beg is to chain yourself to craving, what the Buddha called tanha, the endless thirst that binds us to suffering. The first principle, the foundation upon which everything else rests, is this: never beg for love or attention. You may ask, why is this so important? Because when you beg, you place your happiness in the fragile hands of another. You make yourself dependent on their gaze, their words, their approval. And yet the Dharma teaches us that peace comes from within. You are already whole. You are already radiant. You are already enough. To forget this is to walk in shadow. To remember, it is to live in light. Think of it this way. A lotus does not plead with the sun to shine. It simply opens, and in its natural beauty, the sun's light finds it. In the same way, when you root yourself in self respect, love flows toward you naturally. You do not chase it, you do not beg for it, you embody it. Too many times, women silence their intuition, ignore the voice that whispers within, and cling to relationships that have long turned empty. They stay because they fear solitude, because they fear the silence of their own company. But solitude is not an enemy. Solitude is a temple. It is the place where the Buddha found enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, alone in the quiet of the night. When you embrace solitude, you become unshakable. You no longer collapse when someone leaves. You no longer beg when someone withdraws. You walk in the dignity of your own presence. And here's the paradox. When you stop begging, you stop chasing. You begin to attract. Your energy shifts, your aura strengthens, and suddenly those around you feel the depth of your presence. Some will misunderstand you. Some will find you intimidating. But that is only because you mirror back to them what they have not yet faced in themselves. It is not your burden to carry their discomfort. Your task is only to remain true. This is why, before we continue into the deeper principles, I ask you to pause and reflect. Have you been begging for what should be freely given? Have you been silencing your worth in order to hold on to a love that demands your humiliation? The truth is difficult, but truth is also liberating. Love that must be begged for is not love at all. As we journey further into this exploration together, remember Queen Samita, who loved herself first. Remember Anishta, who found strength after unimaginable loss. Remember Jisara, who learned that suffering was shared by all. These women embody the lesson that self-respect and dignity are not luxuries. They are the essence of the path. If this message resonates with you, I invite you to stay with Buddha Story. Let us continue walking together through these timeless teachings, drawing wisdom from the past to heal our present. And if you find value in this journey, please subscribe to this channel so that we may continue creating more videos to nourish the heart and awaken the spirit. Now, before we close this part, I would like to leave you with a question to reflect upon. It is not a question of knowledge, but of honesty. Imagine you are in a relationship where love feels uncertain. Do you choose to A. Beg for attention, hoping that clinging will make the bond stronger? B. Stand firm in your dignity, even if it means walking away from what does not honor your worth? Write your answer, A or B, in the comments below. Your response is not for me, but for yourself. It is the beginning of seeing where you truly stand and where you are ready to grow. The essential principles every woman must remember. There comes a time when every woman must confront the truth about herself and her relationships. The truth is often uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. If you have ever felt the weight of pretending, the exhaustion of pleasing, or the despair of chasing after love that does not honor you, then you are ready to hear these principles. They are not new. They are as old as the teachings that echo through the halls of wisdom. Yet they remain urgent because so many continue to forget them. These are the principles that free you from the chains of dependency and remind you of the dignity of your own spirit. The first is honesty. To speak truth even when it unsettles others is not cruelty, it is integrity. Many women silence themselves because they fear rejection, but what is the cost of that silence? When you betray your own voice, you fracture your own soul. There was once a young woman named Alira who could not bear the lies in her household. Everyone pretended the family was whole, but beneath the surface, resentment boiled. She finally spoke the truth, not with anger, but with clarity. And though it shook her family at first, it also opened the path to healing. Truth is a fire. It burns illusions, but it also illuminates the way forward. The second principle is discernment. A woman who has cultivated wisdom can see beyond appearances. Words can be polished, gestures can be rehearsed, but energy cannot be faked. There was a woman named Sanya who married a man adored by everyone in their village. He was charming, eloquent, and admired. Yet deep inside, she sensed something false. She did not accuse, but she observed. Eventually, his deception was revealed. Her intuition had been correct. This is what discernment gives you, the ability to trust what your spirit already knows, even when others cannot see it yet. To honor this ability is to honor the wisdom within you. Another principle is magnetism without attachment. When a woman is grounded, she naturally draws others toward her. But grounding is the key. Without it, attraction becomes chaos. There was a woman named Ilera who seemed to glow wherever she went. People admired her calm strength, her unshakable kindness. Yet many were unsettled by her presence because she mirrored back to them what they were hiding. Some walked away, some whispered behind her back, but she never changed herself to be accepted. Her magnetism was not a trick, it was the fruit of authenticity. To remain authentic, even when it confuses others, is to embody a presence that cannot be shaken. Solitude is another principle, and it is perhaps the most misunderstood. Many fear being alone as if it is proof of unworthiness, but solitude is power. When you can sit with yourself in peace, when you can walk through life without clinging, you discover freedom that no one can take away. There was once a woman named Amara who was abandoned by the man she thought she could not live without. For a time, she drowned in sorrow. But then she began to walk alone in the evenings, to listen to the silence of her heart. She found strength she never knew she had. Eventually, she realized that solitude was not punishment, it was liberation. To embrace solitude is to become whole again, and wholeness is the foundation of unshakable love. From these principles, a greater truth emerges. You are not meant to chase, you are meant to attract what is aligned. When you stop begging, when you stop lowering your standards, you discover that the right connections come naturally. Some will call you distant, others will call you too strong. But their words reflect only their fear. What they truly see is a woman who refuses to betray herself. Let us remember these names. Alira, who taught us that truth must be spoken even when it burns. Sanya, who showed us the value of intuition when others are blind. Elira, who embodied magnetism by remaining authentic. Amara, who discovered freedom in solitude. Their stories remind us that dignity is not a gift given by others. It is a practice, a discipline, a choice. So when you stand in a room and feel misunderstood, when you sense that others find you too much or too intense, pause and remember this. Their discomfort is not your burden. Your task is not to be smaller, but to be true. The Buddha's teachings remind us that attachment is the root of suffering. These principles are not about pleasing men. They are about releasing attachment and reclaiming authenticity. And so, dear listener, ask yourself tonight, have you been silencing your truth to avoid rejection, or will you stand firm in honesty? Have you ignored your intuition to maintain appearances, or will you trust the wisdom within you? Have you been chasing love to fill your loneliness, or will you embrace solitude and find your own strength? The answers may not come easily, but the path of liberation never was meant to be easy. It was meant to be real. These essential principles are not only for relationships, but for life itself. They are a mirror, reflecting back to you the ways you may have betrayed your own soul and the invitation to begin again. And the invitation is always here. You do not need to beg for it. You only need to remember.